Hi, my name is Phil Johncock, and on this particular slide you can see that I published 11 books in 3 years, 2003 to 2006. Like if you look at number one, The Dream Making to Billions, I even got a grant to write my first book. And the second example there, you'll see 3 books. It was translated into German and into Chinese, The Path of Skydancing Tantra, and it took me 3 years to get approved and negotiate the contract with my author, Margot Anand. A number 3 example, it took me 10 years just to type 1/2 of Zelfa's diary. Zelfa is my great-grandmother. She was diagnosed with cancer, was given 5 years to live in 1935, and so her brother gave her this diary to keep track of her life for remaining years. Well, she went on to live for 11 more years, but in this diary that I just happened to get when my grandparents passed away in 1991, I got the diary, I looked at it, and I said, this is something that I think my family would love to have. So I started typing it up, but it just took forever. I put it on my New Year's resolution list, and I thought I could get it done, but I couldn't get it done fast enough. So what I decided to do was to hire a high school kid, a student in the high school business class, to type up the rest of the book. And then I visited my uncle and my dad, who knew my great-grandmother, and asked them to tell stories. So then I transcribed those stories and put them into the book. So it took a long time, and things weren't working out like they planned, and that happens to a lot of people when they're writing books. So you have to figure out a smarter way to do it. Number 4 is an example that I was asked by best-selling authors, Gay Hendricks and Jack Canfield, who was the Chicken Soup for the Soul, one of the co-creators of that series. They asked me to modernize these old texts. The Book of Life was based on a Roman philosopher by the name of Epictetus, and Already Home was based on the teachings of Ramana Maharshi and people in the Advaita tradition that were mentors to Deepak Chopra. That was an interesting project. Then I went on to create a series of books called the Power Series, Power of the Integrity, Power of Receiving, Power of Creativity, and Power of Living Genius. And it took me 3 days to write each book. So the Power of Living Genius, co-author Megan Salito, came to my house, and we collaborated for 3 consecutive days to complete that book. For the Power of Creativity, my co-author was Jennifer Blaine, who's a comedian in Philadelphia, and when she was scheduled to come to my house for 3 days, she ended up getting stuck. She couldn't fly out because the bombing in the subways in London happened. All of the airports on the East Coast were closed, so she couldn't come. So what we decided to do is be creative, and we wrote the book over the phone. So we talked, since we had those 3 days on our calendar, and we talked, and I typed as we went. So, or we transcribed it in some cases. So that's an example of some of the stories behind the 11 books that I wrote. But I got this idea. It was great. I had a great experience. These have all been published and successful. But then what if I could speed up the process?